My first question is, what is FTC like in your country or region?
Yeah, so in our area, so I'm from Seattle, Washington, which is in the northwest part of the United States. Up here, our seasons are usually pretty fast-paced. How our area likes to do it is they like to try and get FTC out of the way as quick as possible, so that way all the volunteers and the PDP and everyone can focus on FRC, because it's also very huge here. So typically our seasons are pretty rushed. We have our first league meet in October, and then immediately we just have all of our league meets and then our state competition usually in either January or February. Yeah, so we're overall a pretty spread out region. We have teams all the way from the other side of Washington on the east side, and then a lot of us are all in Seattle in the outer area.
How do you get involved in robotics, and how did this journey begin for your team?
I originally, as I was transitioning from middle school in 8th grade to high school, that was right when COVID hit. So my freshman year was entirely online. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to have first season kind of being exposed to robotics, so I first learned about it in my sophomore year. Over the summer, as I came back to school for the first time in person, I saw the robotics team doing a little bit of outreach at our school, trying to get new members to join. That was after the ultimate goal season. I went in there, drove around their bot, learned a little bit about their software. I had previously not heard anything about FTC first at all. Once I heard about that, I was really interested. I joined the team as a rookie in my sophomore year. As a programmer, I focused entirely on computer vision. So back then, the rookie tasks I was being given was to detect the randomized kind of prop or whatever it was across 3 positions. Yeah, I was doing that, writing some cool computer vision freight detection code. That was a lot of fun. So now I'm on CookyBotz, which is not my high school team at all. My high school team was 2 minutes away from me, nice and close. And then that same year we qualified for the Maryland Tech Invitational. We flew out there, competed out there, and on the flight back, I sat next to Veer, who is our captain and lead hardware person. We sat next to each other on the plane, and he invited me to join his team on the plane ride back to Washington. After giving it a lot of thought, I decided yes. So yeah, now I'm on CookyBotz now as the sole programmer, which is not as close, a solid 25 minutes away from me. So it's a fun little drive in traffic. And yeah, so we're a 3-person team. I mentioned Veer does hardware, I do software, and then his sister, Thea, she does all of our business and outreach.
How do you, let's say, reach out to youngsters and show them the robotics part?
The case with a team like ours, and it's one of the things I am a little frustrated with. I always wish our team was a little bit more outreach involved. On my end, seeing the kind of joy and happiness on kids' faces when you let them drive around a robot and explore robotics is just so rewarding. It's so fulfilling. It's so cool. Yeah, so that's kind of one of the things that we definitely lack a lot in. But when we get the opportunities, we do like to try and go to schools when we can. Obviously, time is of the essence to us with a small team. So yeah, we go out to middle schools, elementary schools, and just talk about FTC. Show kids our matches, what FTC is all about, all the different things you can build, program, code, whatever it is. And just try and, get them exposed to it. And I think that's really the biggest thing we do. Another thing at least on my end, I like to try and do is I'm very active online in non-FTC and FIRST related communities to try and talk and advocate for FIRST as a whole, so we can try and get other people interested in and wanting to give FTC a shot.
How do you manage your time between studies and school and robotics overall?
Yeah, so this is probably the biggest problem with our team. We definitely have some high standards we like to hit in robotics. With that comes a lot of sacrifice in school, at least for me, during times of high intensity. So right before Worlds, or during Worlds actually, is usually when I have all my finals. So I've had to commonly take some bad scores on exams and unfortunately sack my GPA a little bit. But yeah, we do try and have a little bit of school education robotics balance. Falling behind is not the best thing, because it just overall adds to more stress, and as those homework assignments pile up, it's not good. I think the one thing that I've always kind of lived by at the end of the day is that for me, I always felt like spending a ton of time in school just learning one thing related in history just wasn't super worth it. I didn't feel like I was learning much. I'm enjoying it, but spending that time on robotics, actually learning industry standard skills and different technological innovation advancements and whatever, felt so much more rewarding and something I could actually use and apply in the future, which ultimately is part of why, things like I said, like my exam scores maybe aren't as good, because I chose to focus on robotics instead, because ultimately I think that's what will reward me more down the road. And so far that's proven true. and I think it's kind of what I've lived most of my school experience by. So,
what are the main projects that you are currently working on?
So some of the optimizations I'm making that are gonna stay on the new bot for Worlds, because we're rebuilding. We want to limit the amount of inertia when we're scoring right now, as our arm will extend out. And for context, I guess I'll just briefly explain this, just in case. Our arm on a robot can extend and rotate over like this, and with that high speed also comes a lot of things like wheels coming off the ground and losing traction, and small issues, which can cause a lot of problems. One of the things I'm working right now on is to limit the inertia on the arm by calculating how much inertia is currently active in our arm system. I want to try and limit that in order to reduce things like the robot tilting and getting off the ground. And this has kind of been one of the big goals I've set for this season. I think having kind of priorities and things you want to accomplish in a season is very important. And for a little bit of background, like me, I want to do math and CS in college, and focus on things like physics engines and physics simulation. So one of the things I've prioritized this season was to work more with physics and math from the software end. So an example of this is in our same arm I was talking about. When you have something like a PID controller trying to rotate your arm back and forth, there's a lot of disturbances you have to predict and account for. One of those is gravity. So the common way of dealing with gravity is by creating what's called a feed-forward term, and that is just a constant term. Like if you have some linear slides going up and down, it's just a constant term being applied all the time to compensate for the amount of gravity that will be exerting on your slides, bringing it down. With our case, it's a lot different because it's, when we're extending, we're rotating around, those systems can change a lot. And the amount of gravity being exerted on our arm can change a lot. For example, one way I kind of made a solution to this was by calculating the center of mass of our robot at any given point in time using the arm angle and extension. And by using this, we can better capture the physical state of the system and actually what's happening behind the scenes, instead of just, okay, if it extends this amount, then apply more power, things like that. So this is kind of all tied into my big goal of using physics and math to try and solve different problems in the robot that normally wouldn't maybe use a super math and physics based approach for, which I'm happy about. I think it's been a lot of fun being able to, this goes back to what I was also talking about, where I can learn these skills and things that in school I wouldn't have done this at all. There's no use case for this in the classroom really. So being able to do things like this is really cool. Another one I'll just briefly mention is our localization and relocalization systems. So right now on the robot, we're having some weird drift issues with our odometry, which we have yet to figure out why. And one of the solutions we've come up with for this has been just using vision basically everywhere on the bot. So when we're scoring intaking from the stack in auto, we use cameras to detect the tape and the pixel stacks in order to realign, guaranteeing we get the pixel every single time. And then adding on to that, we also use the April tags in the backdrop, and then also detect the partner's preload on the backdrop as well. And that makes sure we can get our yellow preload every single time. That is one thing a lot of teams I know are having issues with right now, is trying to make sure both partner preloads get down, because you don't know where one partner is going to put one. So using vision detection has been a huge, we haven't missed a single preload since then, since implementing that. So ultimately I want to make that system a little bit more consistent and reliable, and make sure no matter what that stuff won't break. But that's mostly it from the software end. The hardware end is a little up in the air still. We're still working on CAD and designing everything, so not totally sure what our plan is with that yet.
How do you think localization is going to evolve in the future in FTC? Like, how do you think it will be improved by future things?
This year has definitely been one of the first pivotal steps in the right direction. Now that we have a more reliable source of vision localization, compared to what we had before with the field images, which were just not fantastic, and the systems in place to use those were not good. That was already really good, and what overall software needed a lot. Down the road, I know FTC does plan to change their control system from and I don't want to speak on this too confidently since I'm not too up to date on it, from I'm pretty sure the control hub to something new. With that, things like loop times affecting auto reliability and consistency probably will go away. And again, I'm sure that's subject to change, which I know is a big issue a lot of teams have right now with making sure their, code is efficient enough to have an accurate autonomous, which is nice because it will level the playing field a little bit more for a lot of teams, making sure the lower level and rookie teams can try and compete in a higher level with more basic localization. Now that control systems and everything can fully keep up with it and keep track and be reliable. As for specific technologies, I don't entirely know anything yet. If you asked me this last year, I would have said the Vision and April tags, but as I said, they've gone in the right direction with that. So,
do you have any special collaborations and, let's say, partnerships?
Sponsorship-wise, I think CNC Madness, it's a company locally in Washington, has been huge for us. They do our carbon fiber parts. As a small team like ours, money is, very important. When you're on a larger team, obviously it can get divvied up between 15 people. Lots of people, or in a school, sometimes the school funds it. With us, we do have to go basically entirely out of pocket, unless we have sponsors. And considering our robots are all entire carbon fiber pretty much, CNC Madness has been a huge help for that. I don't know where we would be without them. Probably in a lot of debt though. Mentorship-wise though, I think there's a few people that have kind of been super impactful on our team. One of those is a boss who I think is also a mentor for CyLiis as well, if I'm not mistaken. He has been huge for us. He's flown out to competitions with us before, despite him living in Maryland at Johns Hopkins University. So yeah, I want to thank him a lot for that. And then also we have, last year we actually had a fourth member. He joined us for the World Championship because we needed some help with rebuilding. That's Fino. So he has been really helpful this year, solving any hardware problems we have, helping us calibrate April tags when we need it. He's out at Stanford right now. So yeah, it's been pretty helpful. On the software side, for me, the biggest partnerships I've made have also been with people in the FTC community from a student-wise. So there was 2 teams kind of last year that were, I guess in Freight Frenzy they were pretty big. And that's 22377 Sigmacorns. There's a guy named Ben Kant from that team. Super nice guy. He's helped me troubleshoot a lot of software stuff too. And then also another team, the Clueless from California. They're dominant every single year. And one of their lead software guys has also been a huge help for me. And I think honestly that's the one thing that I think a lot of people take for granted is using the kind of student and alumni database that FIRST has, as well as in things like the FTC Discord or the FTC Reddit. There's a lot of people on there that are active and are, willing to help and reach out to you if you need it. And I think that's one of the things that's definitely kind of pushed me to be a better person as a result of that and try new challenges and come up with new ideas, which has been pretty cool.
What do you think is the most memorable thing that you managed to do in this career of yours?
Yeah, so I think there's kind of 2 things that come to mind. One of them, in terms of the most memorable, despite it not being my favorite thing that happened, was when we were competing in, this was last year during Power Play, when we were competing in New Mexico state competition to qualify for Worlds. On the plane ride down there to go compete, the airline lost our robot, which was not a fun experience at all. So we, again, thanking Abbas here, Abbas and Veer's dad drove, I think, 12 hours or something crazy, 6 hours to Arizona, to another airport where the airline ship they're bought into, and then back to New Mexico overnight. And then we got our bot like at 7 a.m, right before the competition started. So it was certainly a stressful experience, one that I will always remember. But if I had to kind of pick something that I would say in terms of I'm most proud of, at least, I think all of the kind of just in general, when you see how fast this bot is running this year, I'm always super proud of it, and it always makes me kind of think back to all the hard work and time and dedication and sacrifice we've put into this bot, which I'm super proud about and super happy about.
If you had the chance to make your own FTC season, what would you do in particular?
I think one of the things that, and I kind of mentioned this at the beginning, that I never got a chance to do, is I missed out on Ultimate Goal, because that was my kind of COVID year. And I was really hoping this year would be a shooter game. And unfortunately that was not the case. So if I had to kind of pick and choose a kind of game that would be up, it would be a shooter style game. I've always liked the, I think it was Steamworks, the FRC game, where there's just wiffle balls everywhere and they're just flying the entire time. The air is just covered in wiffle balls. And I think it'd be so fun to have like a small scale version of a game like that in FTC. The last one that, unless I'm mistaken, that comes to mind was Velocity Vortex, where we had a kind of a style of a game like that. And seeing how the game has evolved now, how much more advanced in the last few years bots have gotten, and kind of the skill ceiling is raising, I think it'd be really cool to see that game played, or like a wiffle ball shooting style game played at a kind of a worlds level. Because I know for a fact some teams would just do some crazy stuff with that, make some fast moving robots, some auto aiming turret shooters, and frankly a game like that just kind of appeals to me. It's just cool because it has a lot of unique hardware elements, some unique software elements, and I think it's just awesome.
I mean, I had enough with the paper plane with the drone this season, so I don't think I want a shooting style game. But
I have that is the one thing I have not totally been a fan of this season. Everything else has been pretty good.
Yeah.
The whole drone concept isn't my favorite, just because there's so much unpredictability with it right now, and frankly, if a little wind is in that building, like I know some California events are like exclusively outside, which is just not good at all for any
speedy
drones.
to be honest.
Yeah. So, well, I kind of hope they don't do something like that again. But I mean, again, it's part of the design challenge, so.
I mean, it had to have some inconsistency in it, you know?
Yeah, totally. Again, like that is like the kind of the premise of like the challenge with the drones. It does suck that there is only so much variance you can account for, and so much, you know, just again, wind, little just air currents, whatever it is, will just ruin everything. I know at Worlds, and I'm actually really interested to see how this will go this year. At Worlds, they have a lot of air conditioning and vents directly above the competition fields. I don't know how much of a factor that's going to be, but I'm genuinely curious to see what that will look like this year. Because if that ends up being a problem, I would just kind of be interested to see how they handle that and what they do about it. So, yeah.
Well, I enjoyed talking to you, and I'm very thankful that you managed to answer all of our questions and made time for us. Best of luck in the season.
You too.